Hi guys, good morning and welcome to Primus Learning. So this is a video that has been requested by many of you. You asked us to do a video on the Application Migration Service, and we'll be doing exactly just that in this video. So we'll be doing an application migration, we'll be using the Application Migration Service to migrate a server that is on-premise, a service or a server that is running on-premise to the AWS cloud. That's what this video is all about. And guys, this video, the application migration service is abbreviated MGN. So we'll be seeing a lot of MGN. So this abbreviation as we go along, we'll be explaining the steps and everything that we'll do. So what we'll be doing is a lift and shift. It is called a lift and shift. So you must have heard of this term if you've been in the cloud space for a while. You know that a lift and shift is just moving your application the way it is already built in, maybe in a server. Let's say you're just moving your laptop from here and placing it somewhere else. You're just moving a server that's operating on premise to the AWS cloud. That's exactly what this video is all about. So the strategy is called a lift and shift. So it's a lift and shift type of migration that we're doing. The service that we're using is the Application Migration Service. This is an AWS service that helps in migration. So you guys asked me the last time to do a follow-up video on the Cloud Endure migration platform, right? We did an application migration using Cloud Endure the last time, and some of you reached out asking us to do a video on the Application Migration Service, which is an AWS service. Cloud Endure is managed by AWS, but it is out of support. They are moving it out to the Application Migration Service, which is their service built by AWS. It's an AWS particular service. So the environment is AWS, and we'll be running this in US East 1. So the steps that we're going to follow are these. We'll create a server on premise. When I talk of on premise, I mean out of AWS. We'll create it somewhere else. So our on premise environment will create this server in GCP, in the Google Cloud Platform. So it will be like a normal, a machine that you can have on your local environment, or a normal server that you have in your local work environment or your local data center. So we will create a server in GCP, which will be considered our on-premise server. So we'll call it going forward our on-premise server. Once we create it, we'll connect to the on-premise server and install VS Code and other applications, just as you would have. You can have applications running inside your server, and you want to migrate that server up to AWS. We want to make sure that we install things there such that there is data. In that case, once we migrate, we want to log in and make sure we have that data available. So that's the second thing we'll do. We'll also create a replication server. So we'll create a replication server in AWS and create some IAM roles that will permit us, to be able to do the work that we're about to do. And we'll download the Application Migration Service agent. We'll download that and log in into the new server that we'll be creating on-premise. So our on-premise server will install that agent that is downloaded from AWS. Once we have installed it, we'll then launch a replication instance in AWS, launch the replication instance or replication server, edit the replication templates. So there is a replication template we'll be editing. I'll explain all of it. There is a launch template we'll be creating, we'll be editing. I'll explain all of that, and of course a cutover template. I'll explain step by step as we go along. Then the seed point is we'll launch a test process. So there'll be a test process or a test instance. We can call it a test instance. Launch this test instance and then cut over process. So we'll do a cut over of the migration. So that's where the real migration occurs, and then we'll clean up the the server and the server that we created on premise and clean up the environment so you don't get charged. So guys, you can follow me on this video. Please click on the subscribe button and help us get get remunerated so that we can make more content, guys. So please click on the subscribe button, hit the like button, share our videos, and let us reach as many people out there, right? So that a lot of people can learn this. I know I've noticed that there are many people who have problems with migration, and this is one of the reasons we are doing this video. So these are the steps we'll follow for this migration, guys. So let's get after it. All right. So the next thing we want to do here is we want to create our on-premise server, right? So we are assuming that you have a server that is running on-premise. Else, if you want to follow this video step by step, you can go along with me and log into your GCP account. This is my Google Cloud account, right? So my Google Cloud account name is this, and I want to create an instance. I want to create an a virtual machine, a Windows machine. So it will be considered our on-premise machine. I will just call this Windows machine Primus Learning. I'll just call it Primus Learning right here. Come on, why is it not letting me type? So something is happening. Let me refresh this page. I hope you guys can hear me well. So I'll just record this page. Sorry, I'll just create. So give it the name Primus. Something happening with this thing. So one moment, guys. Looks like GCP has its own troubles here. Let me refresh again one more time. Sorry about this, guys, but this happens sometimes. So we're refreshing the page just so we can create our instance. So this is basically our on-premise instance. I told you we'll create it in GCP. So let's do that. So we'll name it Primus Learning. We'll leave it in US Central 1. That's Iowa. US Central 1. It's just like in AWS, you have different availability zones, right? Different regions. So this is the region, this is availability zone. So US Central 1A, US Central is the region. And so what type of machines do we want to create? We'll leave it at a general purpose type of machine, right? We'll leave it at an E2 type of machine. Or series of machine. This is the series, and this is the machine type. The machine type is E2 medium, and the memory here is 4 gigabyte memory, and the vCPUs is 2. So we'll leave it at that. Don't want to create a very big one. All right, so that's the device we want to use, and so we'll leave everything as is. Don't worry about these steps. So we'll leave everything as is. Would deploy it in this default service account. So these are Google names. The service account will allow HTTP traffic in and out of this account, and then will allow HTTPS as well. The next thing we want to do is we want to change the boot disk. Let's change the boot disk. And so instead of having a Debian, so these are the types of operating systems. Instead of having that, let's select a Windows server. So it will select a Windows 2022 Data Center Edition. So this is the version that we want. Let's leave that version. And then the boot disk, let's leave it at a balanced persistent disk. All right, so let's leave that, and it has 50 gigabytes. So take note of this size. It's 50 gigabytes, so you'll be replicating on AWS, and we would have a 50 gigabyte machine on AWS. So we'll select this, I think everything that we want looks good here. We can go ahead and create our instance. So we have the name Primus Learning. That's the name of our instance or of our server on-premise. This is the name of our on-premise server. So it's the server that we want to migrate to AWS, want to move it to AWS. So we'll go ahead and create this server. So hit the create button. Google is pretty quick with creating instances, so it will take a very short time to create this machine. These are called instances as well, VM instances in Google, for those who have not worked with Google yet. So it's taking a little bit of time to get this going, but we'll follow the process so that you follow it step by step. We don't skip over some processes, guys. So bear with us as it takes a little moment here to create. All right, our instance is created, guys. So we have Primus Learning running. This is the external IP and it's ready to go. So what we'll do is we will simply set the password here so that we can log into this instance. Remember, we said we'll log into the instance. So we'll leave the username to be Primus_vehicle. This is the username we would use. My name, we can change it to Primus Learning. So we can change it to Primus Learning, no problem. So we can change it to Primus Learning. So let's do that actually. Cannot be the same as the instance name. Oh, I see. So let's do Primus Learning server. Primus Learning server. Primus Learning dash server. Yeah, let's leave it at this. Primus Learning server. Okay. So we set it, so it shouldn't match the instance name. So this is the password. It will automatically generate a password for you. So we'll have to save this somewhere. So let's go back to our script, which is this one, and we'll just do the saving here. So we'll just put the password here, and we'll put the username. Primus Learning Server. That's the username we gave that instance. So let's make sure that looks correct, guys. So that's the password. We copied it. And then we set the username for this machine to be Primus Learning Server. So I think we are good to go here. What we can do is, these are the details. We can connect to this instance. This is a Microsoft Windows 2022 Data Center Edition of a machine. So what we can do is download the RDP file. So we've downloaded the RDP file and we want to log into this machine. So this is how to connect to it. You download the file. You want to use the remote desktop connection to connect to this machine. Remember, this is the IP address I showed you. And so we can simply hit and connect. And it will bring up, oh, it picked up the original username it had. So let's see something. We may change it later, but let's give it the password that we just copied. It was this password right here, I think. All right, so let's copy the password. I think I copied. And go back to that remote desktop. Give it the password. Let's make sure that's the password. Okay, remember? And try to connect. We'll try to connect with, yeah, so it sees that user, that's not the user it knows. So let's use a different user, right? Remember the user we gave was Primus Learning Server. That's the user we gave it. And so give the password and try to log in. Now it recognizes the user, right? Because we've given the right user, and we can hit yes to connect to this server. You see, it's connecting. If you've been able to, if in the past you've connected to a Windows server from another machine, so a remote desktop into it, you will discover that we are already connecting to it. You can see that interface. You can see the IP address, the external IP address here. We're already connecting into a laptop or a server that I usually call it a laptop that we just created in the AWS environment, guys. All right, let's give it a moment to boot. So it's coming up. Let's give it just a few moments here. It should be up in a moment. All right, let's just hit no here. And I want to select server. I want to go to this server and you know, it's a server, so you can control other machines from this machine. So I want to go to the local here and make sure I'm able to run a few things inside. I don't want it to be giving me all the crazy questions to say yes and yes and yes. So I'll deselect this just to disable this thing for now. Enhance security configuration. Once you do that, you'll be able to download stuff from use the internet using this Edge thing without all those questions it'll be asking you. All right, so I'm ready. Confirm my browser. My browser is up. This is an Edge browser. So I want to download some applications in this new machine. This is a server. This is a Windows machine, right? Which is running. So I want to download, let's say Notepad++. You know, it doesn't come with Notepad. So it's like an application that you run inside your machine, inside your server. And so if you want to migrate that server, it should have some data. That's why we're downloading this. So expect to see Notebook++ once we launch our application and migrate the server over to AWS. So let's get that installer. Let's do the download here. I think it should be downloading so that we can type out some data and do some stuff. Maybe we can also download Python and install it. Let's download Python. Let's download this Python and go to download 3.11. All right, so downloading it as well. So first of all, we have some files that we've downloaded, right? Those are like applications. You could have your files in your machine. So if you go to download, you see that we have some files on our system, right? We've downloaded some files. So we'll be expecting to see these two files once we migrate this thing over. And then let's run this file and install Notepad++ so that we can create some files and put some random data inside. We'll be expecting to see that data once we migrate this thing over to AWS, guys. All right, that's what we're doing right here. Let's install it quickly. I'm downloading Notepad++ because it installs really quick. It installs so fast, guys. All right, it's done. And then let's launch this other one, Python. Try to install it fast as well. So Notepad++ is up already. While we're installing Python, we can just type in some few things and have it, going before Python completely installs. So Python is failing to, one or more issues cause the setup to fail. Please fix the issues. And it's giving us a log. No, we don't want you. We can stay there. All right, so let's just do this. Let's type in something. Hi, this is a server migration test. Let's just say that. So let's just save this file in our downloads folder. Let's just save it in the downloads folder so that we know that, or let's save it in documents so that we have a file in documents called server migration test. So once we see this file, we know that, hey, our migration is successful, that we're able to migrate a machine and it has all our data. So take, for instance, you have all your data stored in this machine, in this server. This is called our on-premise server, remember? So you have all this data inside. You want to migrate it seamlessly and have that data available in AWS, right? That's what we're just doing here. So you can do whatever. It could be a server with a lot of data. You can have files everywhere, folders. You want to see a folder called maybe Primus learning. You want to see another folder called, or maybe you want to see a document called test server, and so on. So we want to see all of these things once we migrate to the new server, guys. So we are done with this first part. We've created a server. This is called our on-premise server. So although we are hosting it in Google has no links. You see, there's no direct link with AWS. That's why we're calling it an on-premise server, right? So it's just like a machine that you have on-premise. So that's the very first step. We've created a server in GCP. We've connected to the server, right? And installed VS Code no, yeah, we've not installed VS Code, but we've installed Notepad++. We could install VS Code as well. Anything that you want, you can do that. And then we want to go to the next step, which is creating a replication server in AWS. So let's go to AWS now. Let's go here and go to this part. So if you don't have an AWS account, please create one and log into AWS. To create it, you just need to go to AWS, to the AWS. So if you don't have an account, you can just go here, AWS create account. And it will just bring you to a sign up page like this. You see, this is the AWS sign up page. You simply create account. It's free tier. You can follow along once you create the account. All right, so let's go to our AWS account and look for the service. So there are two ways you can go to it. You can look for the service application migration. You see, it will bring you the application migration service, or you go to the migration hub. So the migration hub, it will still be, it will still take you to this application migration environment. So you go to migration hub, and then see this is a link to the migration hub. It will be able to take you to the AWS my application migration service. All right. So the first things I told you we could do was to edit our templates, right? So you want to edit these templates so that they reflect whatever your replication server would look like. So this is your replication template right here. You could edit it. So remember the type of server you created in AWS and all that. So you want to have a replication server that is strong enough to be able to hold whatever you're doing. And that application server, you want to have it in the VPC that you want to launch your application in, or you want to launch your server in. So if I want to launch it in a demo private VPC, if I want to launch it in this subnet in this VPC, you have to select it, that particular one. So these are some ones, but I will leave it at the default one. So you don't want to put your things in a public subnet, for instance. So you can have it inside this type of VPC. So I've done that. What type of replication instance do you want? Maybe an M5 machine. What type of replication server type? What type do you want? This is just it. So you can select it. I'll leave it as at what it is. So I want to leave it as a general purpose type of machine, GP3. Encryption should be default. Maybe you want to encrypt your data with something else. You can select a different type of encryption key. So if you have encryption keys that can encrypt your thing, but I'll go with the default one. So you can create your encryption keys the way you want, right? And then you give your security group. Who do you want to have access to that server? You can give the security group. You can define any security group. You can select security groups that you've created previously, right, in your account. So I'll leave the default security group just because it's this migration. Do you want it to create a public IP when it creates? If you want it, yes. If no, you say no. And that's it. So that's very simple. Save your template and go to the launch template. This is the template it will use to launch. So when you're launching, what do you want the server to do as it is launching? So I want it to activate my instance type right sizing. So I want it to mirror the instance type sizing. So if it is an instance with 50 GB, if it is an instance with this, I want it to copy the right sizing of that instance to AWS. And that's why I will select activate instance type right sizing. Then start instance upon launch. So once you've launched the instance, it should start it. It should launch, it should start the instance. So transfer server tags. If you want to transfer the server tags, remember our server was Primus Learning. It was named Primus Learning. So it will transfer the server tag and everything here. So there is this bring your own license model. Do you want to bring your own license for whatever applications you're moving? No, you want to use the AWS provided license. But if you have your own licenses for the server and things that you want to move on, you can bring them here. So you would simply click here and it will probably ask you to, it will not include AWS licenses on whatever you're migrating. So do you want to launch it in a particular subnet? Maybe you want to launch it in a default subnet, right? Configure, you see it says default EC2 launch template. Configure the default settings that will be applied to the EC2 launch template. So, and at your launch template, where do you want it to be? What's your target subnet? So you can use the default target subnet if you want. Any additional things that you want it to have, you can do that. And once you've put all of that, you see the IOPS, the general purpose, if you want a general purpose, and so on and so forth. You can leave this for now since it's just a test, and save your template. Once you've saved your template, you want to make sure your post-launch template is good as well. So these are the things after you've launched your instance, what will happen, right? So if you log into this, you see it says install the systems manager agent. If you want to install the systems manager agent so that it manages, so that a systems manager manages the instance, then you select this, you put this on. And I did that for this one. So this template will stay here. So cut over instances only. What do you want to do? Choose whether to execute the post-launch actions on your cut over instance only. So these are the things we'll do. Want to do our tests only on cut over instances. We don't want to be doing all those other ones. Though they recommend that you do a test and then a cut over instance, that you apply all of the deployments to the test and cut over instances. But we want our deployment to apply just here because this is just a learning video for most of us, right? So we want to, or most of you can use this really at work, but you can, if you want to use that work, please select this test and cut over instances, the recommended version, so that it applies all the changes that you want to the test instance and then apply them again in the cut over instance as well. So if you're at work, you want to configure disaster recovery on migrated servers. In case something is failing, it should recover your things in a particular place. So if you do this, it will ask you what's the target disaster recovery environment that you want this to replicate this instance over to, and you do that. So once you've done all your changes, license and subscriptions and everything, if you have any license that you want to do, you just simply save your template. Once you've saved your template, you are ready to go, guys. Your migration is almost ready. So those are we've edited the templates, ready to go. We'll explain more about these templates when the migration is going on, right? So that we will take a little bit of time to explain it so that you really understand it better. But for now, let's just add a server. So we want to add a server. This means that we want to, add the source server that we had. So the on-premise server that you want to migrate. That's what we're talking about. You can click here and you select the type of server that you want. Remember, ours is a Windows server, right? If it's a legacy one, you have to select the legacy, but ours is not a legacy server. It's a 2022 data center edition of Windows. And so you select your replication preference. What type of replication preference do you want? We want to replicate all the disks that we have on that server. And then how do you want to do this? I want to create a user. Let's create an IAM user that will give us the access to be able to do this, because you want a user that has access to be able to perform all these actions, right? Remember the idea of IAM users. The idea of IAM user. So let's create an IAM user. We'll call it MGN agent installer. So let's go to this page and create an IAM user called MGN installer. So you see it has permissions. It already has all the permissions. That's the name. We did something wrong. What did we do? So let's do that. Let's recreate. So go here, go. So it brings us to this page. You can see this is, it has its name already. It has everything. Let's select this and scroll down. So you, we don't even want console access actually. Let's leave it like that. And go back and see why it's messing us up like that. I think that user is existing, that there's a user that is existing like that, and that's why it's messing us up. So let's do that again. We can give it a different name, installer 2. Let's do this. So I think I did a previous thing when I was doing this. So it has a user already, and so you see the managed policy that it's adopting is AWS Application Migration Agent Installer policy. So this is the policy it's using. It has its name. It has programmatic access. It's using just the programmatic access. So let's create this user so that we use the access key and the secret key for this user. So you copy these keys or you just download and save them. You've downloaded them, you can save them, but you need that to be able to continue with your thing. So, all right, let's just leave that there. Once you've had those keys, right? Now it's asking you to download the installer. So let's copy the installer link. So copy the installer link. So make installer, this one is different. Copy the installer link. So we've copied the installer link. We want to go back to the server where you are, right? The server where you want to migrate over, which is the server we remote connected to it, this server right here. So we've copied the installer, the link to the installer. So you will have to download this inside the machine. You saw I right-clicked here. So I right-clicked and simply copied the link address. I copied the link address here so that I can go inside the server. So on the server you want to migrate and download whatever execution file they're asking you to download. So I'm downloading that one. So I've downloaded the execution file. This is the execution file right here. This is the agent. This is the agent that you want to use, is the agent you want to use. And for this one, I'll advise you copy this right here and install. So there's one thing we did not finally do. Let's do that. Copy this and bring here. So you want to have this replaced here so that this link will have the correct credentials to use. So let's go back and copy this one. I can show you just because I want to copy, right? So copy that secret access key and save it here. I'm doing this just so you don't have errors. I can show it just to see. You see, this is, I will delete it afterward, of course. You will not be able to have access to it at that time. All right, guys. So you see, once you do this, it automatically fills out all that information on this link. So you can copy this link here. You've downloaded this. You see, you've downloaded this inside the machine already, which is what we just did. We downloaded that. And so you want to run from where you downloaded, right? So we put it in our download folder. We just download it. This is the application, the AWS Replication Windows installer. You can double click it from here, but it will ask you for a username and password, not a username. It will ask you to put those details that you copied manually. So I would like to just run it from here. So if I do that and just paste that link that I copied, you see the replication instance link, it will be able to run from here directly. And it will not prompt me to put any region, to put anything. So once you've done this, guys, this is the replication installer. So you've installed the replication, you've started to install the replication agent. So this is the replication agent, sorry, that we're installing. And now this is how you're linking up the server from where you're migrating. So the migration server, you're linking it up to the replication instance in AWS. So you're creating a replication instance in AWS and linking up. This is where there is that link between your server and your instance. So you see it's verifying that the source server has enough free disk space to install the AWS agent. So identifying volumes for replication, disk to replicate identified. So it's identified that it's a 50 gigabyte machine that it's moving, that it will be migrating. All volumes for replication were successfully identified. So it's successfully identified it, and now it's downloading the replication agent onto the source server, which is the server we created in Google, right? That's why we are still logged in. We are in here. We are inside the server. We remote desktoped into this server. So it's installing the AWS replication agent into the server right here onto the server that we're migrating. So it will take a little bit of time. So it's finished downloading, it's installing. Take a moment here to install all of this. And once we go to AWS, therefore, you will see that there is a replication process that has begun. There's a replication process that has begun. This machine has been discovered and there's activity going on. So let's first of all finish here and we'll move over there once this agent has completely been installed. All right, so the installation process is going on. I don't want you to lose sight of what it's doing, right? That's why I'm keeping us here for a moment so that we don't lose sight of the information it's giving us here. So it take a while and just disappear once it's completed its install. And so as it's installing, it will take a while and just disappear. So nothing more. Let's just let it do its work, install the agent. And so if we go back to AWS now, and now you're done, right? Remember, we copied the keys, the IAM key, we copied the secret access key. So the IAM access key and the secret key and put here. And that's why we were able to get this link with already populated details. Else you can copy the link and put the details by yourself, no problem. And then we downloaded an installer by using right click, copy link. We moved it to the server, downloaded it inside that server, and then copied this, ran it in the location where we downloaded it. So you need to run it from the location. You need to run this command from the location where you downloaded the installer. That's the trick here. So once all of that is done, you just need to hit back here, right? No need to save anything. You see, it has discovered Primus Learning. Primus Learning, remember, is the name we gave our instance. So it's discovered that, hey, there is an instance that is doing some activity somewhere. So at first we had no instance. Now we have one instance. Why? Because we are installing, you see, it's finished installing, syncing the source server with the application migration service console. He has finished doing that. So it's synced it. Now the migration server in AWS will continue its work. This thing has finished installing. It's synced the two things. So AWS has discovered this server. It will now be checking step by step the boot volumes. It will check the data that is concerned here. It will check the memory. It will check everything to make sure it is set. It syncs up this information with the replication instance that we defined in AWS. Once it syncs those things, it is then going to begin replication. So let's go back. This work is done here. It will just disappear after a moment. So let's go back here and go into the Primus Learning server to see some details, right? So you see it's waiting for initial sync to complete. That's what is happening right here. And so you see, it is not ready. This first step is not ready. It's not ready to go for testing yet. So this first step is still moving on. So these are the various steps in the life cycle of this migration process. So it will move from not ready to ready for testing. And then it will move from ready to testing to test in progress. It will move from test in progress to ready for cutover. Then from there, we'll move to cut over in progress and cut over complete, which means you will be able to do what? To perform some of these actions on it, right? You can view some of the details here. And these are some of the things. You'll be able to launch test instance. When you launch, you'll be able to launch test instance only when it's moved from there to ready for testing. Very important. You will be able to do launch test instance only when it has moved from not ready to ready for testing. That's very important to note. Same thing, you will be able to launch cutover only when it has moved from launch test instances to ready for cutover. So you'll be able to do this one only when it is ready for cutover after finishing testing. And then you'll be able to launch finalize only after it's finished doing its test, its cutover. So those are the steps. You see the replication progress. The replication progress is at 0. So it's still initiating the replication. It's still trying to sync everything and figure out, hey, what is inside that original server that you want me to move? You see, it's 50 gigabytes of memory that it has to move. And currently it hasn't done anything yet. It's still figuring out. Look at the steps that it's doing. It's creating security groups in AWS. So if you go to AWS, you begin to see AWS security groups that are created. It's launching a replication server. It's launched that. It's booting a replication server. So if you go to, so let's just go there as we are speaking. So if you do duplicate this tab and go to EC2, you should see some of those things coming up. EC2. So if we go to EC2, you see there are some activities taking place. Now, if you go in here, you see there you go. There's a replication server that is being launched, an AWS Application Migration Service replication server. This one should be a T3. Why? Because we gave it a T3 when we were editing our launch template, our replication template. You remember the template we created? These are the details we selected in the template. It will be in a default security group because that's the security group we gave. It will create additional security groups because the application needs its own security group. So it will create some additional security groups, and open up, create a public IP because we asked it to create a public IP right here, and that's it. So you can see some of the details here. And if you go to security groups, you see those security groups. It will be creating 2 volumes very soon. So you can see some of the volumes that it will be creating, and they will be called, I think the volumes are not yet. Yeah, I think these are the 2 volumes that are being created very soon that will act as our server replication server or AWS Migration Service replication server, and another volume that will be a replication volume. So there will be a replication volume which is replicating the 50 gigabyte that we had of the original instance. And that's why we need a replication volume. It will delete this and replace it with the real server. But this is just a replication volume. This is just a replication server. So the server is 8 gigabyte. Remember, the server was just a simple server that we defined. Same thing, it will create a a snapshot. It will create a snapshot once it's launching this thing. So it will create a snapshot of this machine right here. So it will be a snapshot of the replication instance. You see the snapshot and you see where this one is pending. That's exactly it. There's one that I did with Cloud Endure. There's another one that I did with this one. So it's pending. It's creating a migration service snapshot so that it captures the data and all the information you have in the old server that you're migrating. I'm calling it old because it's the server you're migrating over here. So those are some of the things it's doing currently, and you could see those things happening here, right? You could see them. It's done the initial ones, and you could see the events as well in your events logs in CloudTrail. So replication progress is 2%. Neat. You can see, if you want to see this, you go to CloudTrail, you'll see them. So you can see what's happening. It will tell you a bunch of things, events, and give you what's happening with the events. So you see updating agent January 2026, 2023. So today, and you see some of the tasks it's doing. It's just informing you what it's doing. So just a bunch of details on what it's doing. All right, so let's complete the walkthrough. So this is on the migration dashboard, right? So this is on the migration dashboard. And then if you go to server information, you just see the server information of the server, the old server. This is the old server information. And then the one you are moving to is this information right here. Okay, and then the tags, we asked it to copy over the tags. The only tag we gave was Primus Learning, which was the server name from there. And we asked it in our launch or in our replication template to bring over those tags. Remember the tick we ticked, the checkbox we ticked. That's exactly what this is for. Then the disk, this is the disk with 50 gigabyte that it's replicating. So you saw, we just saw a volume there, right? It's replicating all of those. And then we have the replication settings. These are the settings that you defined here. They are the same thing that are showing right here. Same thing. And then the launch settings are the settings that you defined in your launch template right here. And then you have the post-launch templates are the settings that you defined here. So this thing is really easy, guys. It's similar to Cloud Endure. At first it was, my problem with it is it's a little bit slower than Cloud Endure. I think personally, I think it's slower, but it's easy, way easier to get this thing going, to run it correctly and get your really neat environment going. So you don't have a lot of work in terms of that. So the various things here, you have the server. This is where you see the initial dashboard and configure your server. If you don't have a server, you can configure a server here and you do your migration. And then these are the applications you are migrating, right? You can just add the applications after you've migrated. So add an application, you just do this, define the application name and all that. We don't need this. Then waves are like just setting, I have one wave that I created before this yesterday when I was doing the video, just to test out. So I did that. You can add this machine, the machine we are migrating to this wave. To create a wave, you just hit a wave. A wave is just like a conglomeration, like a merge of a cluster of instances. You just give a wave number and all that. So it contains your information in one place. That's all a wave is. Then launch history, you see a history of your launch. These are some migrations that I've done. So you see some are 6 months old, some are 14 hours ago, and then you go to your replication instance again and everything. So there's documentation about this, right? You can read about this. You read this documentation, very simple, straightforward, and really neat, guys. So you read what AWS Application Migration Service is all about. The get started documents, the history actually, and then the get started document. You can follow the get started document starting from the application migration initialization, and then you go to the next, which is, you see the MGN. This is MGN, which is the application migration. So these are the roles it will create. It will create all these roles as it started initializing, because it will use those roles for the internal activities that is taking place. These are some of the roles that it will create. So the roles will be explaining to you what it will do, right? It will give you migration full access, the service migration full access, which is this one. It will give you the application migration EC2 access so that the services can access EC2, so that this service can access EC2. It will give application migration SSM access so that because we selected SSM, right, it has to manage your EC2 instances using systems manager, and that's why it needs that one. And then it also needs the migration read-only access, AWS application migration read-only access, so that it can do some of the reads in your inside your EC2 and all that. It also needs the migration agent policy so that it will be able to, that agent can be able to be installed, discover things out of AWS. And it needs application migration agent installer policy so that it will grant access so that you can install an AWS agent outside of AWS in your server. So this is what some of these IAM policies are doing. It's some of them are created automatically, so you don't need to do them. And then you're creating the templates, right? So these are the various templates that we talked about: configuration templates, launch template, and a post-launch template. You can see all of them here. And then the initializing, you can initialize this thing via an API, so programmatically, and this is the code you can use to do that. Then accessing the application migration service console. This is the same console like this one here. So no need to go to that link. And then support AWS regions. These are the regions that the migration agent works in. The support quota, it tells you that you can do 20, like each supported AWS region has 20 jobs that you can launch concurrently in the same account, or the same, in the same account you can have those number of jobs. You can just read more about that. And yeah, some of these details are not very technical training. It has some training that you can follow, 2 hours training that you can follow on your own, just to see what's happening. All right, so these are just some things that are going, that some documentations about this that you can really watch, and they will help you a lot through the process. Our migration is in progress, sorry. So you see it's waiting for initial sync to complete. It will do that. It will take a while. This process will take, like, you see it's still at 9%. So this process takes an hour. Guys, it takes an hour. So what I will do is I will pause this video. Once it finishes this and syncs it up, I will then unpause the video, or I'll start sharing again and put on the video again, so that we continue from there. But it will be seamless. There's no other activity that will take place. This screen will remain right here. The only thing will be it will move from here to here. That's all you will see. No change. So don't be afraid. It will be the same process. All right. So I'll pause recording. Hi guys, hope you can still see my screen. All right, so it's moved over to replication progress. You can see this replication progress is at 100%. It's 50 of 50 gigabytes that has been discovered. And you can see some of the tasks, or the history and events that have occurred all the way down here in your CloudTrail events. So it's still not ready yet. I just wanted to show you that it is at 100% already. I've been waiting here for 105 minutes, guys. So you see, that's the disadvantage with this with application migration service. It's longer, it's slower than Cloud Endure. One thing I noticed, which is something you can learn from this, is that I did it last night. It was not a lot of people using the service, maybe, and it was 60 minutes. The same type of machine that I was transferring or was migrating took 60 minutes to get to this point, but today it took 106 minutes, which means the time for your migration will affect the speed at which that replication process is synced up, is initialized. So you can see it's finalizing its initial sync, creating first launchable snapshot. You can see what's happening. So if you go into your AWS EC2 instances, you should be able to see some instances that are up. You see a snapshot, it's taken a snapshot. You can see the number of snapshots have increased, right? Because it's taken a snapshot of the current machine. So what it will do, it's creating another snapshot right here. So it does take snapshots at different points, right? So it's taken a snapshot before, it's taken a snapshot now after doing that replication. And so it will be using a new instance. I think it will be using a new instance, replication instance, to do its work. So let's go to this dashboard. And check running instances. So it has a replication service that's coming up. There should be another one that will be coming up in a moment from now. And if you go again to volumes, you should see 2 volumes that are up. So I think there should be 2 or more volumes. Yes, we have 2 volumes. There's the replication server and then there's the replication volume. And for snapshot, you should have a snapshot that is up. So I think we just saw the snapshots. There are 2 snapshots that are completed already. And those are the 2 up here, 1, 2. The other ones I did them yesterday. So there are security groups that were created and everything is created. You can see them right here running. So still 1 running. So if we go back to our application, we see that it is waiting for initial sync to complete. Once it completes, we can begin the test process. So I will let this run and complete. So its progress is 100%, but finalizing initial sync. So I will let this complete and then I'll come back to do the test. The test will take a while again to complete. Just, it will, all the steps will take a while to complete. So I'll come back to, so I'll stop recording, come back to get that going. Let me just pause now. Thank you. See you in a bit. Awesome. So the initial sync is complete, guys. You can see replication is in progress. Replication progress, initial replication is completed, and it took 112 minutes here. And the replication type is agent-based. You can see the life cycle moved from not ready to ready for testing. And so we can begin to launch test instances. That's basically what it means, guys. So what we will do is, no, nothing has changed elsewhere, so we're still here. So we can do, you see, it's, so you see the various states here, right? So it says it's ready for testing. So what we can do is we can launch cut over, no, not cut over instances, we can launch test instances. And so we'll do that and let it run for a while, because it will take a while to launch the test instances. So you are asking it to launch and it's saying you are about to launch EC2 instance for server 1. These instances will be launched according to the launch settings you have configured. Remember, we configured the launch settings. They will pick up those launch that launch template and launch settings that we did to use. So let's hit launch and it will take a while. So you see it's launching. So test in progress. So it's begun launching. In a moment, you see MGN. So MGN is the Application Migration Service job. So you can see the job and see job events below here. So you will see the job events down here as they are occurring. So if you go here and look at your job events, you should be able to see it launching. So sending metrics, these are matrices that are occurring. June 26th, today's June 26th, this time 14 something, update agent. So it's begun some activities occurring. So let's go back here. So this should take a while. This will take a while. It will launch some instances on AWS. So if you go to AWS, you should begin to see some instances appearing. So let's check that. Let's go here. It will take a while for this instance to begin coming up. So you'll see another instance just like this one coming up here in a moment, guys. But I won't wait for that to come. We'll just go back here to this environment and let it run. We'll let it go until the status changes, and then we'll come back and view how the progress went and so on. So I'll pause this video again, and we'll be right back. Hi guys, I'm back here. So sorry if you were not hearing me earlier. Maybe I put on a wrong earpiece here. But anyway, there was nothing much that I did. I just walked you through this step, moving from this step here. It was ready, and then all I needed to do was click to move to the next step. So it's moved to the next step, which is testing. So it's showing that it's currently in progress, right? There are test activities going on, which means you are supposed to be testing whether the instance that is launched, right, is correctly launched, everything is looking good. Then we can move from here. Once you're done, you can move from here to the next step. So to see, you have to go to here to the EC2 dashboard to see if there's an instance you can test. So you see the instance here is named the same way like ours, like the one we created in, or the one we're replicating, the one we are migrating, right? You see it copied everything same. So you have to test and tell them, hey, I've tested, it's looking good, and then they can be sure that your tests are done. So you see, you remember your template. This template we called your launch template. In the launch template, we said it should discover instance type right sizing. We put it to on. So it has gone and checked the instance that is running on Google or on-premise, which we call our on-premise instance. That is checked the instance and seen that, hey, the right sizing that I need for that type of instance in AWS would be this, would be what we have here, which is a C5 dot latch. And so it's provisioned a C5 dot latch, because in our template we put it we turned on the right sizing filter there, which tells it to, hey, figure out what right size instance would pick up the workloads that you have. And so that's exactly what it did here. So testing simply means you can go in here, see what's happening, if it's working as expected, if you have your applications inside, if everything is looking good. So you can connect here by downloading this. I think we can run as administrator. I don't know. We may not test this right now because we have, let's see if it works. We had some key access thing. So this is the password. Let's copy that password, guys, and come back here. Where's our remote desktop? I think it should have failed actually. Oh, I'm rather inside this other one. I don't want to get inside. I want just the remote desktop. I'm still on the other one, so that one, hold on, let me do this. I think I downloaded it. This is it right here, the second one. This one was downloaded today, 26th. Okay, did modify it. So open that up and see if it will connect. I'm sure it's trying to connect with a different name. So we'll look at the details in a bit. So we'll not spend time actually connecting to this instance because we still have a lot to cover before this video ends. So we assume that our thing is on because we'll test the final product. We assume that it's working well. We've tested, it's working well. So let's go back to our migration dashboard and go back to our servers and go in here. You see tests are in progress. Once you have completed your testing, you have to mark it as ready for cutover. So let's assume that we've completed our test, everything looks good. Our EC2 instance is there, we're able to connect to it, everything looks good. You have tested, your applications are ready. Then you can mark as ready for cutover. So let's mark it as ready for cutover. So you see, it says you're about to mark one server as having been tested and ready for cutover. Test instances continue to accrue EC2 charges until terminated. You can terminate these instances now or later from the test and cut over menu. So let's just do that and turn on. So it shows that we've tested and it's completed. So if we go down here, you see that it's ready for cutover, which means it's ready for you to launch a cutover environment. And so we'll just go ahead and launch a cutover. So launch cutover. Simply click there, and it says you're about to launch EC2 instance for EC2 instance for one server, and this is the information it gives you. Let's hit launch. Oh, it says could not launch any instance. Some or all of the specified source servers do not exist or have the wrong lifecycle state. Okay, let's see the state. So it says it's ready for cutover. So I think it should be ready, except the process did not complete yet. So let's try that again. Ready for testing, ready for cutover. Let's make sure it's ready, marked as ready for the action cannot be performed on the selected server because it is not currently being tested. Oh, so it looks like ready for testing, test in progress. Oh yeah, it shows test in progress, ready for cutover. So there are some activities that are still going on, I think. There's some activities that are still going on, and so it's not letting us launch. Let's see. Yeah, there are some activities that are still going on. So it says the source server is currently being processed by another job, which is the testing job. So the testing job is not completed. So we'll let that testing job complete and we'll come back and do the launch. So once it completes, it will show that test in progress. It will show that it's completed. I think it should show somewhere. Let's see. Just because we manually marked it, right? You see, you should let it complete on its own. Don't manually mark it. That's a lesson here, guys. So don't manually mark it. Don't manually mark it. Let it complete. Then you can do your cutover. So it's still running. So let's see if it's done. Still running. So we'll give it a moment, guys, and come back to it. And I will just pause not to let this video go for too long. I'll just pause and then we'll come back and continue in a moment. Hi, guys. So it just went through. So I just did the launch cutover and just hit the launch cutover just a moment ago. Was just testing and it has just begun testing. So the same activity that occurred in this ready for cutover is the testing, same activity that is happening now. So it will now create the real instance. So what will happen on the AWS instance side is it will delete this test instance and replace it. You see, there is no Primus learning instance again. So it's deleted the test instance and now it's creating the real migration instance. This is the last instance it's creating, which is the real instance that we want. So in a moment here, that instance should be coming up. So the process will give an instance here. The same thing, it would delete some of the volumes and snapshots and create new ones. So you see the snapshots here. It will delete some, create new ones, create a new one, which is the one for the current instance. For the volumes, it will delete the volumes that existed and create the two volumes. You see there are more volumes now that are showing up here. There is the replication server volume, replication server volume. There's one more replication server volume, volume, and a conversion server. This is a very important server. Volume rather. This is a very important volume because it's the volume that is doing the conversion of data from the old instance. You see it's available, it's not in use yet. It will become it will be in use in a moment when the new instance is creating. It's doing the conversion. It's moving over data from the old one to converting it and putting it in the new instance that will be launched here in a moment. So there's still one instance that is up. If we go back here, You see the state is still launching, or launch status is waiting. So it's still waiting. The processes are still running and so on and so forth. So not a lot of activity. I will let it run on its own, and then we'll come back here again when it has completed running, so that we don't waste your time, we don't waste our time, and we'll continue from there, guys. So let me pause again. Hi guys, so we're back here. We just want to complete this process. It's been going on for too long. It's 4 hours. 4 hours has elapsed, and this just completed. You see initial replication finished. Replication progress is initial replication finished, agent based, and then the total thing here is this. Let's look at the logs and see where it is currently. So if you look at the logs here, you see that the recent events, this is 5:49, describe source servers, get replication configuration. So there were still things happening at that time. I think it should be finishing up 5:49 still. Let's see if we can get this thing done with, because it's been so long. I've been very patient, guys. So that's the application migration service. It takes long to get done. So cut over in progress. So we should be completing this cutover now. Let's see if it can do that for us. So let's try to finalize cutover and see if that's possible. You are about to finalize cutover for one server. So let's do that and hit. So we finalized cutover, which means this is completing the process. So the cutover is complete and replication progress is this. So it will go again for a moment. So I think replication progress 0. So that's the final cut over. This is the last piece right here. It will go again for a moment and then complete the process, and the status will be completed here. So let's give it time to do that. It's the progress is 0. Hopefully it goes well. So let's go check the instances and see what's happening there. So if we go to the console here and go, I think this is actually the instance. Let's go to instances that are running, refresh and see what's happening. So this one is running. And if we try to log into it, let's see if we have access to. Let's see, try from the console here. Not yet. So still not yet to connect. Still having some expected errors here, unexpected errors. Let's do this. Let's check the logs and see what's happening. See if there's any progress. No progress. Let's check the logs, CloudTrail logs, and see refresh. See if there are any logs. So 550 get launch configuration describe. So it's getting things ready here and completing the process. So let's give it a moment and see what happens, and then we can come back and let you know if we're able to access it, what's happening, if it correctly completed the process. All right, talking a bit. Hi guys, so our migration is complete here. Status is completed. Launch time is completed. So if you go back to your servers here, you see the migration is completed at launch. The cut over, sorry, is completed. Data replication status is completed, and it's been marked as archived. So I did everything to make sure it's completed. So the last steps will just be to connect to this instance, and it's running in AWS. So if you go to your instances, this is the instance. So let's go to EC2. If you log into the EC2 instance, you discover that the instance is existing. So if you go to dashboard here, this is our dashboard. And here is your instance is running. So you can log into it. To connect to it, you have to connect through this IP address. So it has a private IP address here. So 172.31 blah blah. So this is the IP address. Just click on the connect on the IP address, and you can use a remote desktop connection or a remote desktop tool to connect to it, and give the username that we used at first. So this is the username Primus Learning Server. Primus Learning Server, I think that was the username or something like that. And yeah, this is what you would need to use and connect to it. So you can also connect here to see the connection details. So you're able to see the connection details from here. This is where you download the RDP if you don't know the RDP, or you can also pick up the IP address from here. And yeah, that's how you connect to it, or you connect to it here. This is the AWS social port that you can use to connect to it. Else you connect using this, the remote desktop connection. Give the server name, hit connect. Let's see if this will connect, because I think, hold on, let's see, this may not connect. Let's see, we've not given a password, so let's go to local advanced settings. Sorry, yeah, let's go to advanced settings. We need to pass a password. Local results. Allow me to save credentials. We haven't passed the credentials yet, so it shouldn't connect, but it should bring up a tab for us to give credentials. Anyway, it's been a long video, guys. I want to stop it here. So I'm sure you know how to connect to an EC2 instance once it's running already. So this is the EC2 instance running. So you can connect to it and you see whatever thing is running inside, just as it was running previously in the other instance, in the Google instance. So the last piece here is to clear off all of this. So you see the last piece was to do the cleanup of environment. So to do the cleanup of environment, you don't need to go to you don't need to clean it manually. So the first thing you can do real fast here is go back to your migration environment, see where it was. This is where you did your migration, and you can use this last part here, terminate launched instances, to terminate the instances that you used in launcher. I think those ones were terminated already, and you can clean up with that. So you come here, go down, terminate launched instances if they were not terminated. So this server is already cut over. Terminating a launch cutover instance means that you will be removing the already migrated server from AWS. If you're sure you want to remove the migrated server from AWS, you can terminate this instance from the EC2 instance console. So let's go to the console. That one is migrated already. We can terminate it. So we come to state and run terminate. Remember, don't forget, sorry, to terminate the one in GCP. That can cost you a lot of money if you don't terminate it. So you have to come here and go to instance. So let's go back here. This is the GCP instance, remember, and select it, and you want to terminate it. So you go here to actions, delete. So you want to delete everything. There are some volumes also that are running in AWS, which you would have to go in and clean up. So you're shutting down. This one should be terminating in a bit. Make sure those volumes are cleaned, because that's where you can encounter cost as well. You can incur a lot of costs from there. So you need to go into volumes. Where are volumes? Snapshots. I think there are snapshots as well that are remaining. You have to clean those up. There's this snapshot here So this is a snapshot that you have to clean up. This one, snapshot that we took earlier, so make sure you clean it up. Delete snapshot. So it was taken by the process, right? This one was taken by Cloud Endure. I have to clean this up from my account. See this snapshot, delete. Then you can clean up the volumes. Remember, we had some volumes that were created in the process, right? Is the Primus learning volume. So I think it's out of use now. We can clean it up. I want to detach volume. We want to detach the volume. Okay, it's already failed to detach, I think, because the instance is deleted. So let's see which options we have for it. First detach volume, delete volume. So first detach volume, yeah, detach. We'll type the word detach and first detach. I think it should be detached, or maybe it doesn't want to detach because the processes are not completed. So yeah, I'll detach this one. I'll detach this one. Let me see. Nope, not creating a thing. Detach. Yeah, I'll clean up this one. It's making it. It's being heady here. Detach. Let's see. So unable to detach root volume. For instance, this because the instance is probably still having some processes that are running. So we'll do that later. But yes, guys, this is how you migrate from on-premise environments to AWS, right? So these are the steps that we followed. There were a lot of steps. We had to pause and come back because it's a long process. The migration is long. So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, guys. Share the video. Let's help more people learn how to migrate applications to AWS using the Application Migration Service, a service that AWS provides. Thanks and bye-bye.